The M2 iPad Pro has kind of blown my mind. I really did not expect this device to become one of my favorite computers I've ever used, but it really has. I've only had it for about 3 weeks, I believe, and so I think it's fair to say you should take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I will say, I've been an iPad user for a long time. I've used the iPad 2, the original iPad Pro, the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, and basically almost every iteration of the iPad Pro and a few others since then. There's just something about this form factor, especially since the 2018 models, but especially since they put the M1 into this device, that has just been so exciting to me. The idea that you could have a thin and light computer like this with all of this power that could become all sorts of different machines was so enticing even back in 2018. I think the problem was, until recently, we've sort of been dreaming about a machine that doesn't exist, but now it does. So to be clear, the iPad Pro, this guy, is not my only computer. I have a PC gaming desktop that I use for all kinds of tasks, including music production. It was my primary video editing machine. Obviously I play a lot of games on it, but I tried editing a few videos in LumaFusion again on the 11-inch iPad Pro, and I realized it was kind of where I needed it to be. And so part of my calculus with this device was essentially, I wanted to see if it could become the heart and soul of this entire YouTube channel. Basically, could I do all of my thumbnails, all my video editing, use it like a desktop on my monitor, use it as a music production device in Logic, and to be honest, it's blown me away. I don't think it's without its faults, and I think there's still room to grow, but if you're like me and you were excited about the possibility of a device that by itself is powerful, but with accessories can become something else entirely, a device that's both an art studio, a music production studio, and a video editing platform, but also exceptionally thin and light and versatile. This to me has been the dream of the iPad Pro for years, but it's only recently become the reality. And it's been really cool to see and really awesome to use. I do consider myself a bit of an early adopter, and so I know my use case is not going to be the same for everyone. But I do think there's a pitch for this device that really didn't exist before. It really felt like it was almost great for years and years. But the M1 and M2 iPad Pros, 12.9-inch specifically in my opinion, with a Magic Keyboard become something else entirely. Now there's nothing wrong with the 11-inch, and there's an iPad Air that has an M1. There are even iPad minis that can run Logic, but I found that Logic is the first app where I realized I really wanted a 12.9-inch screen instead of the 11, and I can't imagine really working on anything smaller, although I have commenters who said they're doing that and they're loving it, so your mileage could totally vary. But there's something about this that's just different from other computers in a way that I really enjoy. It finally has some of the features that I loved on the Mac and other computers. I actually really like Stage Manager. I know David Pierce at The Verge and a few other people have said they don't, but I love Stage Manager. Once you have the Magic Keyboard set up, or if you have it plugged into an external monitor, I find Stage Manager to be extremely compelling. I like having floating windows, and I like clicking through apps that way. But I also like that at any point I can just have this be an iPad again. And it really has managed to do basically everything I want to do for the channel for the last few weeks. Sometimes I'll film the footage from my videos on my Lumix S5 and then transfer it over via an SD card on a USB-C adapter. Sometimes I'll film on my iPhone. And on the iPhone, I can just airdrop the footage straight to the iPad and start editing it, which is awesome. And for things like Reels, when I do little music production loops where I might make a song on the Ableton Push, or on the iPad itself. For the ones where I make the song on the iPad, I can actually screen record the iPad to get the audio, and then I can cut the two together in LumaFusion, airdrop the video back to the iPhone, and then upload it directly to Reels. But that's not to say I got this just for short form video. The last few videos on my channel have been entirely edited on this device as well. And moving forward, I plan to do all my video editing on here. The only thing I don't have that I think I want to get to make it even better is a Magic Trackpad, because when I'm using an external monitor, the mouse I have, the Logic MX2S, is not great. It has a pretty serious amount of Bluetooth latency, and I don't think that certain apps in the iPad in general like being used by just a mouse compared to a trackpad or touch. And so I do think I want the Magic Trackpad to make using this with an external monitor even better. There's absolutely room to grow with this setup. It's not perfect. Most of the apps that I would use for music production are not on here yet, which is the biggest reason why it can't be my main computer. And it's kind of a bummer. It's the sort of thing where the hardware is now there and some of the software is there. And if I wanted to move my entire workflow to Logic, it would hypothetically be possible, but I would be losing out on a lot of great software from manufacturers like Ableton, Arturia, Native Instruments, or Akai. And so because those apps aren't on the platform, it's not a thing where I can replace my entire setup with the iPad. But I do think having a combination of a Windows desktop for gaming and for high intensity music production, or for finalizing tracks with Isotope Ozone and things like that, and then having the iPad Pro, which I can basically have be my everywhere all the time computer, except for when I need the power of a desktop, is a pretty good setup. But let me be clear, my ideal would be everything on this computer. And it's honestly a bit of a bummer it's not quite there yet, but I know it will be, and I'm really excited to see where it's going. We've made a lot of progress, and by we, I guess I mean Apple and the users, towards making this what we thought it could be in 2015 when the iPad Pro first came out. I think it was 2015. 2018 when the 11 and redesigned 12.9-inch iPad Pros came out. 2019 when iPad OS came out. And all the way to now, where we have an actual file system where you can see the transfer speed and the transfer time and the remaining progress when you're transferring files, where apps like LumaFusion are high-powered video editing software available with you wherever you need, where Logic Pro is finally on here, which will hopefully create a more stable platform as other developers create plugins and apps for both Logic and new versions of their own DAWs, which are also hopefully more stable, and even Final Cut, which personally I have found to be very lackluster in its first version, but hopefully will become better over time. I try to err on the side of caution and not be overly optimistic or overly pessimistic on this channel, but I'm extremely excited about this device in a way that I haven't really been excited about anything else. This device is so good that I've thought about making videos about how Logic Pro on an iPad Pro is essentially the best DAW-less device now, which is an oxymoronical title because Logic Pro is a DAW, but there's something about using it on the iPad that just feels really different from using a DAW on a PC. And I think it comes down to how it was designed with touch first in mind. That tactile feeling is exactly what I love about things like the MPC or the Machine Plus or the Ableton Push or the Akai Force. But it's on the same computer I could record the video with and then edit the video on and then release onto YouTube. And it still feels tactile. If someone came up to me and asked me, should I replace everything I have with an iPad Pro, I would almost always say no. Sadly, we're still just kind of at the point where I don't think it's possible to do that. But I do think if you know what you're getting into, this is finally what I wanted it to be, and I think it can really only get better from here. Obviously, I suppose updates could come out that ruin it, but that's not the vibe I have from where this thing is going. People will often say eventually the Macs and the iPad and everything are going to merge into one whole ecosystem. That ecosystem might be the Vision Pro in 10 years, who knows? But right now, this thing is great. I think the future is bright for it, and as far as getting the M2 or the M1, I think you can't really go wrong either way. If you can get a good deal on a 12.9-inch M1, you get the same screen, you get a very powerful processor, you'll get a lot of RAM. The M2 is just an even extra layer of future-proofing, and I'm really hoping that more apps, including LumaFusion, will introduce the hover video editing options with the pencil that Final Cut has. And I'm hoping the Final Cut will get more powerful and actually let you multi-cut immediately instead of having to select and then cut and then select and then cut and kind of ruining the speed of that workflow for me. Yeah, overall, I don't know. I haven't been this excited about a piece of technology in a really long time. Probably since the last time I was really in love with the iPad before it let me down. Will this one let me down? It's possible. But something about this time feels different, and I'm really excited. What do you think? Is this all copium? Have I drank the Kool-Aid? Or is there something here? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much to my Patreon patrons, and thank you for liking and subscribing, checking out my music, and just being rad. I'll catch you soon. Bye.